Same rotation.
Rockets showing you? Okay.
Yep.
What's the mood going into this last week with all that's at stake? How do you keep guys focused on sort of what's ahead?
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of sounds boring, but it's kind of been the same mood we've had all year. You just don't. It's just day to day. You just come practice and do your thing, and then we'll go practice tonight and show up and play a baseball game. There's not a whole lot of ups and downs with this group.
I don't know if you've thought about this, but that Saturday game, if you guys play it out the way that you want to, and then Illinois, Purdue they go after you guys on BTN. Is that something where you guys would watch that, stick around and watch that? Or do you guys have travel plans that night? What's Saturday evening like?
Are there implications with that game?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I hadn't even thought that far ahead. I mean, I know we have a charter flight, and we have a chance to get home early on Saturday night, so I think that's probably what we're going to do.
Where do you rank this team's resilience among the characteristics that you value in this group?
Yeah, very high. I just think that having done this for a while now, like the teams that typically are the best teams are the ones that are that don't get too high or too low, and it's because baseball can lend itself to being such an emotional roller coaster if you allow it to, because there's so much failure. You know, I mean, nobody goes 56-0. No pitcher pitches at a 0 ERA. You know, nobody hits 1,000. You know, nobody wins all the games they're supposed to. Very rarely. It's just a very good characteristic to have a group of guys that just show up and with a job to do every day. And resilient was one of the words that they picked before the season started, so that is kind of fitting. And we've reminded them of those things throughout the year as well, just to, you know, embody the things that we say we want to be about to do that.
There's obviously been a lot of unpredictability just in like the day-to-day results. I mean, you've been consistent in the Big Ten, but just, you know, overall the midweeks, you know, the Sunday stuff. Have you looked around college baseball this year and noticed that? I mean, I was just looking at the RPI today and see that LSU, Texas, Vanderbilt are, you know, having significant struggles of their own. You know, programs that you'd expect to have the most stability in the sport. Is there anything about like college baseball right now that you think lends itself to that?
Everybody's good. That's why. It's because everybody has talent. Everybody has more access to talent than we've ever had in this sport, and it's hard to win. I mean, when everybody's got talent, and you know, the line is pretty razor thin to win and lose most days. I think that's why there's far more parity in the game than there has been in the history of college baseball. I would say, just without speaking too much in hyperbole, I think that's absolutely true.
Kind of building on that, how different is the process of building a contender from what it was 5 years ago?
I would say significantly different. You know, we've kind of talked about that here, where, you know, the job I was hired to do in 2019 is quite a bit different than it is right now. I mean, we brought in a really big high school class of kids, you know, in the 22 season, and they weren't ready. You know, you've got to consistently be older in any college athletics realm right now, I would say. And if you're not, you better be insanely talented with your young guys. But it's hard. It's harder now more than ever for young pitchers and young position players to make an impact at a level where you're trying to win big. It's insanely difficult. You can't just put a guy in and say, well, let's just try to develop him and see what happens, and you might have something. You can't do that because everybody's good, and you can't just roll over people. And you know, especially when when you've got a good season going, you're going to get everybody's best shot. You know, so that's doesn't lend itself to being able to do those things.
You've been around teams that get to the middle of May, into May, and they're poised to make noise, to go on a run. Like the teams that you've been around that have done that, what kind of things have you seen from them? Like
I think you start to see guys emerge that maybe have been behind the scenes a little bit. You have to have some of that. That has to happen. You've got to have guys that kind of just step up that maybe you expected more from, that you hadn't gotten from them throughout the year, that all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's why we really expected, a lot out of them. I think you see it with older players, knowing that their careers are coming to an end. I remember it as a player. I think I probably played the best baseball of my life the last few games I had left, and it's just because you just you got nothing to lose at that point. So those are the characteristics, I think. You've got to have enough talent, of like, okay, where's the mix of guys that maybe haven't made the impact yet, like a Jackson Brockett. Brockett's very talented, and now he's emerged here when we really need him, and it could help us, win series, win tournaments, that type of stuff, when you have guys like that and some others that could step up.
With Brockett, how have you seen him pitch from the stretch? The last couple outings he's had. He's
pitched well. I mean, he's there's been very few blemishes in his outings. He left a couple changeups up. Last time out, I mean, the fastball action has been really good. That's been the impressive thing, is that the velo's been there. He's got insane extension on his fastball, so he's really lets go of the ball a lot further than most guys his height, and so that's kind of played to his advantage. And now he's kind of figured out how to pitch with better conviction. So that 93 that he's throwing looks a lot harder than that to the hitter. Number one, because of the extension. Number two, because of the conviction by which he's throwing. But I think he's been, Coach Childress and I were just talking about this yesterday, the calmness that we felt with Jackson on the mound going into a big game against that lineup. We felt very, very confident that he was going to go give us a good start after having already started a game earlier in the week at that. So,
what's the challenge with Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be fighting for their lives to get into the tournament. They've got some really, really fast guys in their lineup. The left-handers that we're going to face are very, very good. They don't give up a whole lot. Challenge is that like we talked about, that line is very thin. So you got to come and you got to go attack it.
How do you play that hill and right?
It's been a minute since we've been up there. I think Max Anderson actually hit a triple off of that wall, if I can remember right. He didn't want to hit a triple; he wanted it to be a double, but he had to get a triple out of it. Yeah, you gotta, you obviously got to play deep over there, and maybe try to take away an extra base hit or two that goes up against it. But we'll have a chance to look at that tonight at practice. One of the reasons it'd be good to get up there in plenty of time to do that.
With guys like Brockett, Christo, Walsh, Clark, when you get guys that can extend late, give you 3 or 4 innings in a middle reliever sort of spot if you need to, I mean, how valuable is that as you get deeper into a postseason sort of situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's valuable, period, because you have guys that can go finish a game too. And when we've been at our best, that's kind of what we've done. And we've had a mix and match at times with who's closed games, but I think it's just, you feel like you're going to let Sears work out of his own jams. You're going to let McConaughey work out of his own jams. Now Brockett's showing the stuff to work out of his own jams, so they can get, even if they give up a run, they can get you through an inning, and then you can hand it off to those guys that, Clark's shown the ability to come in from the stretch and make pitches. That's what's been impressive here lately. Christo, we'd like to give a clean inning to him because he's kind of more of a starter profile. I think that worked out well the other day. But yeah, it's valuable because then you're looking at using 2 to 3 guys in a game and not having to, make 5 or 6 moves to finish a game off. And then you can do that. Then you've got everything set up, for the third game, the fourth game, if it comes to that, to help you.
How do you think you guys will approach the bullpen plan this week? Yeah, I mean, I think you've got the guys that have been kind of
have been in the fire here recently that are throwing the ball well, that you'll see probably in there. The Clarks, the Christos. I know Jalen hasn't been as hot lately, but part of that is I think we've probably had to go to him midweek and then a weekend and then a midweek and then a weekend. I'm hoping that him having a little, no midweek this week, he'll feel stronger. We've seen that velo dip a little bit on the days that he's had to throw multiple times a week. So those guys are all still in that mix. There's guys in there that've had tough outings, but they're throwing strikes. It's just a matter of putting guys away. You can't leave change-ups over the middle of the plate with 2 strikes. Guys are good hitters are going to make you pay. So you'll still see some of those guys that have thrown high leverage innings that'll be back out there.
How'd Brumbaugh come out of the weekend?
So he wasn't feeling great on Sunday. We sat him Sunday. He hasn't swung a bat this week by design because I'm just trying to save his bullets, so to speak, for the game. He'll hit tonight when we get there. He felt good, when he was out there playing. It's just the next day, Saturday morning, I think he felt better than he thought he would, but then Sunday morning he was pretty sore. So see if he can get the bat going a little bit tonight, and then I would expect him to be ready to go this weekend.
Thanks, Coach.